Zelma didn't cry when Obako left. She didn't beg. She just stared at the empty dinner plate he never returned to, and made herself tea instead. But when Mari flashed the same ring she once refused, Zelma reached into a drawer, pulled out a velvet box, and smiled. There's more than one kind of closure. Obako didn't yell. He didn't argue. He just looked at Zelma one evening and said, "You're not exciting enough for the life I want." No warning. No deep talk. Just those cold words. Then he picked up his things and walked out, like he was leaving a cab or closing a door on something unimportant. Zelma didn't cry. She didn't chase after him. She just sat there, watching the door close behind him. Her heart was heavy, but her face was calm. The room felt too quiet, like the silence itself was speaking louder than any fight could. She sat alone at the table where they used to eat together, his plate still untouched. That silence stayed for days, no calls, no messages, nothing. But Zelma didn't break. She made herself a cup of tea, watered her plants, and carried on. Her world didn't fall apart. It just got quieter. And in that quiet, something inside her started to grow, something strong. Zelma didn't waste time talking about Obako after he left. She didn't post quotes online or try to make anyone feel sorry for her. She just quietly returned to her simple life. Every morning, she opened her small stall at the market, arranging fruits and vegetables like always. She greeted her neighbors with a soft smile, even when they gave her curious looks. At home, she picked up her favorite books again, letting the words fill the spaces Obako once occupied. She found comfort in the pages, in the peace of her little garden, and in the sound of the birds that visited her windows. Nothing about her days was loud or flashy. There were no angry rants, no long phone calls complaining about the past. Instead, there was calm. Zelma didn't need to prove anything to anyone. She let time move on, and with it, she slowly began to feel lighter. Every now and then, she visited a small jewelry shop at the corner of the street. It belonged to Kito, a quiet man with kind eyes. He never asked too many questions. Their conversations were short but warm. Long ago, Kito had once offered her a ring. It was simple and beautiful, something he had made just for her. But back then, Zelma wasn't ready. Her heart was still unsure, still healing from the past even before Obako. So she had smiled and gently said no. But Kito never made her feel bad for it. He had just nodded, as if he understood more than he let on. Now, when she visited his shop, they spoke of the weather, new designs, or which flowers were blooming in her garden. Sometimes, she would hold the same ring in her hand, remembering how it once made her feel afraid, unsure. But now, it didn't scare her. It made her feel seen. Zelma's life moved slowly, but with purpose. She didn't run after anything. She didn't try to fill the empty space too quickly. Instead, she filled it with growth, with quiet mornings, honest smiles, and tea that had no bitterness. She was healing, not by pretending to be strong, but by simply choosing peace over pain. And the world, though it didn't notice right away, began to feel her strength. People started to respect her silence. They saw how she didn't fight for attention. She just lived, kindly and steadily. And somewhere in those peaceful days, something inside her began to glow again. Not because she wanted to show anyone she had moved on, but because she truly had. 2 months had passed since Zelma quietly went back to her life. The market was busy as always, filled with sounds of people talking, laughing, selling fruits, fish, and fabric. Zelma was arranging mangoes at her stall when the peace of the morning was broken by loud footsteps and even louder words. Mari had arrived. She walked through the market like she owned it, her perfume filling the air before she even spoke. She wore a bright dress, her arms full of gold bangles that clinked with every move. Heads turned. Eyes followed. People whispered. And then, Mari shouted so everyone could hear, "Guess who just got Obako's proposal?" She waved her hand in the air, making sure everyone saw the sparkling ring on her finger. It shined under the sun, catching the attention of every passerby. Some clapped. Some smiled politely. A few women gave each other knowing looks. But Zelma. She stayed calm. Zelma looked up for a moment, her eyes meeting Mari's. Then she looked back at her mangoes and continued arranging them like nothing had happened. But inside, she felt something twist. Not because of the ring. Not because Obako proposed to someone else. But because she recognized that ring. It was the same one he had once given to her. The same one she had worn on her finger and then returned when she realized her heart wasn't ready. The same ring Mari now wore like a trophy. Mari didn't stop. She walked around, showing off the ring to anyone who would look, laughing loudly and throwing small jabs meant for Zelma to hear. Some people just don't know a good man when they have him, she said, glancing toward Zelma's stall. Zelma didn't reply. She didn't shout back. She didn't even frown. She simply stood still, her face calm, her hand steady. But inside, she remembered. She remembered the night she gave that ring back, the quiet way she had handed it to Obako, and the peace she felt after doing it. She didn't regret it. Not then, and not now. Let Mari wear it. Let her shout. Let her believe she had one. Zelma knew something deeper, that a ring might fit a finger, but it doesn't always fit a future. And as the noise of Mari's bragging echoed through the market, Zelma kept doing what she always did, standing in her truth, quiet but unshaken. Zelma didn't respond to Mari's loud voice or the flashing ring. She just smiled softly, nodded, and kept her peace. When the day at the market ended, she packed her basket and walked home slowly. The streets were calm, the sky turning a soft orange as the sun set. Children played in the distance, and a cool breeze brushed against her face. But inside her heart, memories were quietly moving. When she reached home, Zelma didn't rush to change or cook. She went straight to her small wooden drawer beside the bed. It had been a while since she opened it. She gently pulled it out, and there, wrapped in a small cloth, was a ring. Not the one Mari showed off today. This one was different. Simple. Handmade. With tiny, careful details only someone with patience and love could create. It was the ring Kito had once given her. She remembered the day he made it. It was quiet. No crowd, no noise. Just the two of them in his little shop, the smell of wood and metal in the air. He didn't kneel. He didn't even call it a proposal. He had simply said, "This is for when you're ready to believe in love again." At that time, Zelma was not ready. Her heart was still healing. She was still unsure if love was safe. So she didn't accept the ring in full. But she didn't return it either. She kept it. Not because she didn't want it, but because something in her said, maybe, one day. And now, as she held it in her hand again, her fingers remembered the way it fit. How light it felt. Like it was made just for her. Obako never knew about this ring. He was too busy wanting the world to see him, to clap for him. His love had been loud, but shallow. But this ring from Kito? It was quiet, but full of meaning, full of care. Zelma didn't put it on that night. She just held it, stared at it for a while, and smiled to herself. Not because of what it meant in the past, but what it could still mean in the future. She wasn't angry at Mari. She wasn't jealous. That chapter had ended. But this small, hidden ring reminded her of something powerful that love doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it waits. Patiently. Gently. Until the heart is ready to receive it. Zelma wrapped the ring again and placed it back in the drawer. This time, not as something hidden, but something quietly waiting for the right moment to shine. Zelma sat quietly that evening, the soft hum of the night all around her. She thought about everything, Mari's loud voice at the market, the flashing ring, the attention, the pride. Zelma wasn't angry. She didn't feel sad. But she did feel something inside her that needed to be settled not for others, but for herself. A sense of peace that needed to be put in place. So she got up from her chair, walked to the small shelf, and opened the same drawer again. This time, she wasn't looking for Kito's ring. She was looking for the other one, the one that had once belonged to her but now sat on Mari's finger. Yes, Zelma had returned it to Obako. But there was a second copy, one he had left behind by accident when he first gave it to her. A backup, perhaps, or maybe a mistake. But Zelma had kept it safely in a box, untouched. She looked at it now, still shining, still beautiful. It was the same as the one Mari wore. Maybe a little less polished from time. But still the same. She didn't look at it with regret. Instead, she picked it up, walked to her table, and took out a small piece of cream-colored paper. She wrote slowly, each word with care. No anger. No bitterness. Just truth. Congratulations. I said no, not because I couldn't wear it, but because I knew I deserved better. She paused after writing, read it again, and nodded. Then, she folded the note neatly and placed it inside a small box with the ring. Around the box, she tied a satin ribbon, soft pink, the kind that didn't shout but looked lovely in its quietness. She didn't tell anyone what she was doing. She didn't need a crowd. This was for her. Her closure. Her final answer. The next morning, she walked to the delivery man near the marketplace and handed him the box. "Please give this to Mari," she said, simply. The man nodded, curious but didn't ask questions. And that was it. Zelma didn't wait to see Mari's reaction. She didn't try to hear what people would say. She went back to her stall, started setting out her fruits, and smiled to herself. She had made a choice. Not out of pain, not out of revenge, but from clarity. She had said no, not because she wasn't good enough, but because she had always known her worth. And now, she had spoken that truth in the softest, most powerful way, with a ribbon, a ring, and a note. The moment Mari received the box, everything changed. The ribbon was beautiful, and the box was familiar. At first, she smiled, thinking it was another gift to show off. But when she opened it and saw the same ring she had been showing around and then read the note inside, her face fell. The words hit her harder than she expected. "Congratulations. I said no, not because I couldn't wear it, but because I knew I deserved better." Suddenly, the ring didn't feel so shiny anymore. It felt heavy. Mari's loud laugh, the one she always used to fill a room, was gone. She didn't parade around the market that day. She didn't show off her ring anymore. Her glow slowly faded, replaced with awkward smiles and quiet steps. People around the market started whispering. The same people who cheered her on began to ask questions. Is it true Zelma had the ring first? Why would someone send that message unless it meant something deeper? Did Obako just recycle a proposal? Rumors moved like wildfire. The attention Mari once enjoyed became uncomfortable. The looks from others changed, from envy to pity, from admiration to doubt. Obako heard the talk too. He didn't like what he was hearing. His name was now caught in the middle of gossip and shame. His pride couldn't handle it. He stormed to Zelma's stall, his voice full of anger and frustration. "Why did you send that ring?" he asked. "Why are you trying to make me look bad?" Zelma didn't raise her voice. She didn't flinch. She stood straight, her eyes calm but strong. "I didn't do anything to make you look bad," she replied softly. "You gave away a ring, not a heart." Her words were simple, but they cut deep. Obako didn't know what to say. There was no shouting match, no drama. Just truth. She didn't say anything more. She turned back to her work, leaving Obako standing there, unsure of himself. For the first time, he truly felt the weight of what he had lost, not just a relationship, but a woman who never needed to scream to be heard. A woman who walked with quiet confidence, even when the world watched. Mari stayed away for a few days. The market felt different without her noise. People remembered how Zelma handled everything, with peace, with grace, and with strength. And while the gossip eventually faded, one thing remained clear: Zelma had never needed to prove her worth. She had always known it. And now, so did everyone else. Kito had been away for some time. He had gone abroad for a short trip, and during that period, the market felt a little quieter. Zelma still visited his shop occasionally, even when it was closed, just to sit outside and think. It was one of the few places that felt peaceful. When Kito finally returned, he didn't make a big scene. He just walked into the market one morning, carrying his old brown bag and smiling gently at the people who greeted him. When he reached Zelma's stall, she looked up and smiled. It wasn't a surprise smile. It was the kind of smile you give someone you always hoped would return. He stood there for a moment, as if remembering everything he wanted to say but choosing only a few words. Then, in his usual calm voice, he asked, "Are you ready now, for something real?" Zelma didn't rush to answer. She looked at him, her eyes soft but full of meaning. She didn't need to ask what he meant. She already knew. He wasn't talking about rings or proposals. He was talking about love that is honest, quiet, real. A kind of love that doesn't need big words or shiny moments. She didn't say yes. She didn't say anything at all. Instead, she gently reached out and took his hand. No one cheered. No music played. But something important happened in that small moment. She was finally ready not just to love, but to be loved the right way. Kito smiled, squeezed her hand lightly, and led her to his shop. The old door creaked a little as it opened, the familiar scent of wood, metal, and something warm in the air. The light from the window shone across the table, where a small ring sat today. It wasn't flashy or big. It was simple, handcrafted, and full of meaning, just like everything Kito did. The same ring he had made for her before, only now it sparkled in a different way. Maybe it was the light. Maybe it was the moment. Or maybe it was because this time, Zelma was ready to see it. She didn't grab the ring. She didn't rush to wear it. She just stood there, holding Kito's hand, and smiled again. The shop, once just a place for metal and stones, now felt like a home, a place where something real had finally returned. There was no need for loud announcements. No need to prove anything to anyone. Because sometimes, the real jewel isn't the ring. It's the peace in knowing you're choosing the right heart. And this time, Zelma was. 1 month later, news quietly spread around the market. Zelma was getting engaged. There were no posters, no loud music, no big dancing crowd. Just soft words, passed from one person to another. People smiled when they heard it, not because it was shocking, but because it made sense. Everyone who knew Zelma knew she deserved this happiness. And Kito? He was the kind of man who didn't need to prove anything. Together, they were calm and strong, just like love should be. The ceremony was planned to be small, held in a little garden behind Kito's shop. Flowers were picked from Zelma's own garden. Chairs were placed under trees. There was no gold arch or fancy decorations. Just love, sunlight, and the soft laughter of true friends. Invitations were sent quietly. Only people who truly cared about Zelma were invited. There was no space for drama, no space for noise. Mari received a package too, but when she opened it, it wasn't what she expected. There was no invitation card inside. Just a small velvet ring box. The same one Zelma had tied with a ribbon weeks ago. This time, it was gently placed inside a note that simply said, "Some things are better left where they belong." Mari stared at it for a long time. No one had to explain it to her. She knew exactly what it meant. And while her hands held the box, her heart felt the cold truth: she wasn't part of this story anymore. Her name was not on the guest list. There was no seat for her. No place at the table. Just a quiet reminder of how pride and show-off had led her nowhere. At the ceremony, guests came with gentle hearts and honest wishes. They placed small gifts on a wooden table, next to a small drawer labeled "Lost Things." Inside that drawer sat the ring box. No one touched it. No one asked. It was just there, a symbol of a chapter closed, resting silently while a new one began. Zelma walked through the garden, hand in hand with Kito. She wore a simple dress, her hair tied back, her eyes shining with peace. People clapped softly as they stood together. There were no big speeches, no overdone vows. Just real words, shared between two people who had waited long enough for the right moment. And while Mari stayed far away, watching from a distance maybe, she now understood something. A wedding is not just about the ring, the dress, or the attention. It's about love that stays quiet but strong. Love that doesn't chase noise but finds home in peace. Zelma didn't need to block Mari or fight her. She simply didn't make room for what no longer belonged. And sometimes, that's the most powerful way to move on. The sun was soft that morning, shining gently through the trees. Birds sang quietly, as if even nature knew this day was special. Zelma stood in front of a small mirror, wearing her traditional cloth. It wasn't filled with sparkles or heavy jewels. There were no diamonds, no gold crown. But she looked beautiful. Not the kind of beauty that shouts, but the kind that comes from peace, from healing, from knowing who you are. Her cloth was hand-woven, gifted by her late grandmother, and it wrapped around her like a hug from the past. Her hair was tied simply, and her smile was soft but steady. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't rushing. She was ready not to impress anyone, but to step into a future that felt true. There was no makeup artist fixing her face, no loud music in the background, just quiet laughter from her closest friends and the scent of fresh flowers from her garden. As she stepped outside, the small crowd turned. Everyone stood to watch her walk, but Zelma didn't walk like someone trying to make a point. She walked like someone who already knew her worth. Her eyes found Kito standing under the tree, where they had first shared long conversations about life and love. He wore a simple outfit too, clean, calm, humble. He wasn't looking for attention either. He was just waiting, eyes full of love, heart open. Zelma walked slowly, each step gentle and sure. She didn't look at the crowd. She didn't need their cheers or their approval. This wasn't about showing anything to the world. This was for her, for him, for the new beginning they had both waited for. She reached Kito, and he smiled. No big speech, no fancy words. Just two hands reaching for each other. Two people who had seen storms and still chose peace. People clapped quietly, some wiped away tears. But Zelma didn't cry. Her heart was full not of pain, not of revenge, but of calm joy. She wasn't standing there to prove that she had moved on. She wasn't standing there to show Mari or Obako that she had won. In fact, she wasn't thinking about them at all. This moment had nothing to do with the past. It was about the now. About love that didn't come from fixing brokenness, but from building something real together. There was no need for validation. No need for social media photos or long captions. Zelma knew who she was. She knew what she had chosen. And in that moment, surrounded by people who loved her quietly, she stepped into a new chapter not to complete a story, but to start one, written with respect, peace, and real love. After the wedding, when the chairs were folded and the soft music faded into the evening, Zelma sat alone for a moment, watching the sky turn dark. The lanterns above gently swung in the breeze, casting warm light across the garden. Laughter still floated in the air from guests who stayed behind, but Zelma had something small left to do. She picked up a plain envelope from her bag. Inside it was a note, short, simple, and written in her neat handwriting. There were no angry words. No harsh feelings. Just one quiet quote. Some rings fit fingers. Others fit fates. That was all. She placed the note in the envelope, sealed it, and wrote a name on the front, Mari. No address needed. She gave it to the delivery boy and said gently, "No rush. Just make sure she gets it." He nodded and walked away. Zelma didn't expect a reply. She didn't want one. That note wasn't meant to hurt. It wasn't meant to win. It was simply her final word, a peaceful full stop at the end of a long, loud sentence. After that, she put her phone down. No scrolling, no checking messages, no posting photos. Tonight wasn't about showing the world anything. It was just about living it. She stood up, joined Kito and a few close friends under the hanging lanterns, and began to dance. The music wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. There was laughter, light clapping, and joy that didn't scream, it glowed. Zelma twirled slowly, her eyes closed, her heart light. For the first time in a long while, there was no weight on her chest. No need to look back. No one to impress. No ego to carry. She had chosen peace, not the kind that comes after a fight, but the kind that doesn't need one at all. And as the night continued, with soft feet moving on grass and lanterns lighting the sky like stars, Zelma smiled. Because sometimes, true closure doesn't come from words or revenge. It comes from silence. From walking away without hate. From dancing, even when no one's watching. And that's exactly what she did. If this story touched your heart, don't scroll without sharing it. Tag someone who needs to hear. You don't have to shout to be strong. Real love doesn't beg for attention, it arrives quietly, and stays. Double tap if you believe peace is the best kind of revenge.